Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guitar Souls podcast. This is episode number 99. We are nearly there, guys, and I am one of your hosts, Mr. Levi Clay. I am here with my good friend, Mr. Mike McLaughlin. How is it going, bud?
I am not too bad, thank you. Surviving. Ups and downs, as you know yourself. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I don't want to do the usual, I'm tired. I mean, of course I'm tired. That's just a given at this stage. But lawyers got sorted. My house is my house. All good.
Finally.
Yeah, and I mean, actually,
good.
you know, we'll mention the live show, but she'll be gone before the live show, so that it's kind of going to be like episode 100, having a drink and celebrating reaching 100, but also celebrating the fact that I have my house and I'm free and I live in it on my own now. So yeah, I can get obscenely drunk, which will be good fun. Cocktails everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm going to be drinking mint juleps. I'm going to be drinking probably beer. I am going to regret it in the morning. I have a bottle of absinthe that I haven't drunk yet in my cupboard that you and I might be tackling. Good 60-odd%.
We trying to die? Is that the plan here?
Don't talk about getting obscenely drunk if you're not going to do it.
Well, I want to get obscenely drunk. I love getting obscenely drunk, but I also don't feel the need to mix drinks. Like, I'm happy to just over and over and over make old fashioned after old fashioned after old fashioned, and be quite, you know, maybe mix it up by the different whiskey that I put in each one.
Unless we decide to make Godfathers and see how quickly one of us will spew.
That's what we really need to do when the world opens up again. Head into Weatherspoons and do a live stream of us drinking picture after picture of Godfather until one of us spews, and then have our
Put
audience.
the table number online.
Yeah, I did that on a night. I didn't do it. Like, we did that for Marcus's stag do.
I remember.
And yeah,
somebody sent a bowl of peas.
So somebody did send a bowl of peas, but somebody also sent a tray of 40 shots.
Oh,
yeah, horrible. So maybe don't do that, but we could have people guess. You know, like how much money it cost us to get pass out drunk, and of course it's Weatherspoon, so it'll be something like £6, which is
I mean, the problem you've got is I'm not going back to Weatherspoons.
Yeah, I know. This is the thing that you're always going to do, but you know, that's okay. You can have your
There's plenty of other pubs.
Yeah, I mean, there are no pubs actually. pubs are
right
now.
Yeah, right now. Yeah,
pubs are really
I get the counter argument to that is, oh, but the staff, like, that's a fair counter argument, but I also would not support that man to partially support other people. Soz.
Fascinating. Just
I like how you're just like, will not engage.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Just
get out of me.
Squash that. Go on.
So I'll give you some. I don't really have anything exciting to tell you. Like, I don't know about good news or bad news, but as you know, obviously I've been looking for work with getting paid off the last one, but just with being agency and temp work. But I actually have an induction tomorrow afternoon, which will be today when you watch this, Monday at 12 o'clock. So I'm in there 12 till 2, and from there I should know what's happening in terms of actually getting some work part-time. Or maybe even full-time, but agency work anyway, which is a good step forward. So depending on what happens there, I should be in the live chat. Might not be, depending on what they say. If I start early on Tuesday or whatever, I don't know what the shifts are going to be like.
Well, this is a disaster, because what if you're starting early on a Tuesday after episode 100?
I'll not be in. We'll work it out, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I at this stage, I think it's probably fair to say that the Guitar Souls has been more consistent than your work history over the last few years.
Certainly the last year.
Yeah.
Definitely the last year. I don't know about anything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been some exciting times. It's been ups and downs, as they say.
Yeah.
But that's at least a wee positive thing, hopefully, moving forward. And I've applied for a couple other jobs, and I've got a good feeling about one that should be very stable. So, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for me. Put it out to the universe, please, trips.
Excellent. I like that, this whole fingers crossed thing, because I can do things with my hands as well, for example. This show is brought to you by Ormsby Guitars. If you want to see something beautiful, head on over to Ormsby's Instagram page right now and see what they are all about. Ormsby Guitars have been at the cutting edge of guitar design innovation since Perry started the company way back in 2003. Since then, the brand has gone on to be one of the #1 brands associated with Australia and modern guitar design. Aside from having one of the most ridiculous custom shops in the market today and a dedicated team that can essentially build you anything that your heart desires, More recently, the brand has gained critical acclaim for their runs of custom order guitars manufactured in Korea, shipped to Australia, and then sent out through their distributor network. These guitars include incredible designs such as the Hype and the Goliath. If you head on over to Ormsby's website right now and check out the pre-order section, you can pre-order a Goliath Run 14 guitar now for under $1,200. That's an incredible price and an amazing amount of guitar for your money. So as always, a huge thank you to our friends and family over at Ormsby Guitars. Please do go and check them out. They have been a long time, I guess, supporter of the podcast now. We've been going for quite a while, and Ormsby have supported us for a lot of that. In fact, when we started with our partnership with Ormsby, we were doing a show every 2 weeks, and now here we are doing a show every single week. It's like they're getting double value for their support, which is good for them, good for us, and everybody is happy. So go and check them out, especially if you're in the UK. Head on over to Peach Guitars, see what they've got in stock, and see if you can pick yourself up a wee deal. Who doesn't like a wee deal?
So glad to see that the UK distribution's starting to come on as well.
Yeah. I'm in a bit of a quandary when it comes to Ormsby at the moment, right? Because I was going to mention in the intro, and I didn't, but I've taken the month off of work. Not off of work, but off of transcribing for people because I need to get a book written. I absolutely have to get another book written. I've not written a book in 18 months. So I started writing a book 4 days ago, and I've got like 11,000 words, like 120 audio examples. Like I'm 2/3 of the way there already because
just you.
Yeah.
Just you on the back.
Just being relentless with it. And it's a book on hybrid picking technique, like real mega in-depth, a progressive system in teaching hybrid picking technique to integrate it into your style in a way that is less, it's more kind of genre agnostic. Like hybrid picking doesn't have to be limited to a style, in the same way that it would be weird to do like an alternate picking book, but like a country alternate picking book. Like what's country alternate picking? It's just a technique. You either alternate pick or you don't type thing. So I'm doing that, and I'm having to start thinking about cover photos, getting a good cover shot for it. And if it's a hybrid picking book, the only thing that you can really do is get good up close shot of the picking hand. And every part of me is like, well, I could get a really nice shot of me on my Ormsby, but then in my mind there's this question of, well, it's got 7 strings. Is that going to look weird to people? And also the pickups are angled, and is that going to? You want something that isn't going to make people go, oh no, that seems a bit modern for my liking. So I'm going through these struggles. It'd be nice if I could work out a way to do this. But yeah, put your suggestions on a postcard, ladies and gentlemen. I'll take suggestions of what you think would go really good on the cover of this book. It may end up being an Ormsby. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully we can get a hold of one of the GTXs once they come out.
Hopefully we can get our hands on anything when anything comes out.
I know.
Just please send us guitars. Ormsby, anybody, please send us guitars. We appreciate it.
And right on the custom slip that it's a commercial demo unit.
Yeah.
It's just a sample because Brexit is going to absolutely destroy us.
Yeah. We're ready for this? I say that, squashing it, but we're going to read some fan mail now, and Mike's going to get to indulge heavily in the second bit of fan mail. Yes. So as always, guys, please do continue sending us some I keep calling it fan mail. It's really not at this stage. Interaction would be a good way of putting it. Send us in your interaction, questions, anything that you think might make for good conversation on the show, because if there's one thing we can say about the music industry at the moment, it's not really ticking over in the way you would want it to be. It's been a year since gigs happened here. It's been a year since gigs have happened in most places now. There's not a whole lot of really good, solid music news happening, certainly not compared to this time last year. So it's becoming harder and harder to get content to talk about on the show, and your input, we enjoy it more. I don't want to say we. I enjoy it more. Mike, I'm sure he probably agrees with me, but it's much more interesting to engage with your questions and deal with and talk about the things you're interested in, rather than say to you guys, hey guys, did you know that this thing has happened? Let's talk about it. We'd much rather engage with you. So on that note, GsolesFanMail@gmail.com. Send us some mail,
please. And you're right, and you're not speaking for me when you say that, but I agree. It's much better us chatting to people and getting their questions or their takes on things that have happened and having that back and forth. I enjoy that way more than just, as you say, here's us being recycled journalists and then putting a daft bit of commentary on it. Probably because it's so quiet at the moment, because there's so little happening that there's no really any topics that we can get our teeth into that we haven't done before, or that isn't really our thing. I know you and I aren't the type to draw borders on what we'll talk about and what we won't, and to pigeonhole ourselves in that respect, because anything that reaches music or business generally is fair game.
Yeah.
But there's not really a lot going on. There isn't, really. It's just...
As people are
nature
going
of
to
the
see
beast.
with the stories that we end up talking about today, we're really stretching it.
But they're still decent. That's okay. Anyway, let's straight on to the interaction/fan mail. Oh, hiya Bailey, Scapegoat.tv. Make sure you're following that on all the social media. Oi oi, just pinging you over some digital love and appreciation. I was originally introduced to the channel via the friendship with Mike and the Party Cannon fellers because of my keen interest not just in music but in the inner working of the industry and production. You guys are now a staple of my watching. Always learn something while having a giggle. Even got to the point where I tried making my own janky 3/4 string guitars and finally trying to learn how to play some/any kind of music.
I like the idea of that actually being 3/4 strings.
It's not the scale, it's 3/4, it's the strings.
Yeah.
They're attached to the 4th fret. You're doing God's work, lads. Keep churning it out and I'll keep watching. The chubby wheezy one, Bailey. P.S. Here is a wee present that will eventually be making its way to you somehow. Pandemic and all that. Now, I have one half of this. I think it's one half of this, but I certainly have the most important part.
I mean, that's...
How cool is that, man? I know you can't really see it, but
Well,
for anybody that's listening and not watching, Bailey has drawn a Guitar Souls logo in the Transformers style font, essentially, and then a wee portrait of him and I, Levi and I, rather.
and I
Isn't
have
that
to say,
cool?
I look like Santa in that.
Oh, I look demented, but
Yeah.
they're still realistic.
Yeah.
Here's your money.
So yeah, thank you for that, Bailey. Genuinely really appreciate that. And I didn't know that you actually had the picture. I was just
Yeah.
gonna post the photo that he'd sent us on the show. So it's a surprise for me to be able to see that there. And that's
I showed
nice.
you, did I not?
I you know what, I think
I'm certain I
sent
showed you a
me
photo of it from when I was in the studio, because Bailey's been filming the Party Cannon studio
Yeah.
diaries, and he gave me it when we were in the
Sure.
studio.
You sent me a photo, but I assumed that was a photo that somebody had sent on to you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So yeah, I love that. That's really cool. And I don't want to be one of those egomaniacs, but I'm going to do it anyway. GsolesFanMail@gmail.com. Send us your fan mail. We're happy. Not fan mail. Let's try that again. Send us your fan art. We're happy to take take a look at it.
Absolutely, man. Anything you send to us, we're going to review.
Absolutely. So yeah.
That's the fun in it.
Yeah.
Bailey's a great guy. Lots of love to him, and big love to him at the moment, man. He's going through some personal stuff, just with his health, and he's a fucking trooper, man. Like genuinely, he's a trooper. The day he was filming us in the studio last, he had to go in and get a needle into his eyeball. Yes.
That would just be me. Nah, bury me.
Like Mass Effect style into his eyeball.
Dead Space.
And that's Dead Space. Sorry, you're right. Yeah, Dead Space. And that's not the end of it. That was them just doing some testing.
Yeah.
So he's not out the woods yet, but he's probably the most positive-minded guy I've ever met for the amount of shit he goes through. And that includes you and I. And we get through some shit, but Bailey's going through some shit. So big love to him. Big care for him, because he's a good guy. And if you're needing anything filmed, in fact, he does live shows as well, where they broadcast from, I think they called it Pandemic Sessions, and it was from Bannerman's in Edinburgh. And essentially they were filming bands on stage and putting stuff out there, so there was some live gigs, which is fucking cool. So
Cool.
Big ups to him, man. He's a good guy. He's trying his best to support as many people as he can in the scene.
Champion.
He is.
And he does good
I've got a wee-
drawings. That's
I mean,
a flattering image of me.
I know they're quite good, man. I mean, I'm a wee bit biased. I love Bailey. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
You just, that way you're like, I kind of need to recognise that maybe I'm coloured here, like with this kind of rose tinted glasses on. Anyway, we move on.
Yeah. I've been delaying putting this one in the show, as
Because
people
of
will
the
see
first
why in a
paragraph?
second. And it would have been easy for me to edit this,
Mhm.
but I wanted to present this in its exact form, the exact way that it was sent to us. For Russell Sims, please take it away.
fuck the Tories, 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 fuck the Tories. Sorry. Now that I've got that out of my system, and that was every one of them that's in that. Made sure I read every one.
Yeah, I still, after listening to you read that, I do feel I should have edited that down to maybe just 3, because I'm going to say it again. I don't want to alienate any of our listeners if there are Tory supporters out there. Like, welcome to the show. Take your issues up with Russell.
Fair enough. I mean, I don't think we need to point that out. I know everybody knows that we take all comments valuable. There's plenty of people that interact with us on a daily, weekly basis that might have different political views to us, and we have a joke about it with those people, and we get involved and have conversation. Sorry, you're saying fuck the Tories. It doesn't mean if you voted Tory, you're the worst person in the world and you should get in the bin. It's we hate the ideology behind it and the mechanisms that are allowing people to be so selfish. Is my view of it. Sorry, what are you going to say?
Well, it's also kind of like I'm sure the equivalent is like fuck Amazon and fuck Jeff Bezos, but also not fuck people that shop on Amazon.
yeah, that's it. So. And I feel as if it's a wee bit like that kind of. I know we're going to talk about journalism, but that kind of gotcha journalism, like, oh, you think you can talk about how bad Amazon are, but you've actually got an iPhone. Okay, no bother. I guess I'm just going to go and live in a cave. Otherwise, I'm not allowed to have any valid criticism. Fuck up.
Well, that's a really fitting one for you because you don't have an iPhone.
I know. I would never own an iPhone.
Yeah.
For no other reason than I don't like Apple products. Yeah. So,
okay, on to Russell's actual questions.
Yes. So, sorry. Now that I've got that out of my system, been watching from episode number 4. Loving the content, especially the recent back and forth between you and Mike with music theory related stuff. That would have been to Levi. I mean, it's always going to be interesting when you've got somebody who's coming from a learned perspective versus a guy that doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, let's test it, Mike. What's the difference between a major 7 chord and a dominant 7 chord?
Pass.
Continue.
Dominant 7 is the flat 7?
Has a flat 7 in it, yeah, good.
Right, cool. Yes, fucking good up, Levi. Anyway. So I've got a few questions from Russell. I'm going to read out the questions and we'll go back to them, right?
Okay.
So question 1 is, how do you feel about Gibson buying Mesa/Boogie? Question 2 is, I know Levi was or is a massive Paul Gilbert fan. If you had the money, would you have bought his pink ice destroyer? Third question is, what is Levi's favourite party cannon track? Oh, I could answer that. Number 4, rude. Sorry, not sorry. Does Levi know how much he's balding? Based on the pedal unboxing clip, I'm a fellow baldy. Shave it off. One of us. Ciao, Russ.
Okay. Oh,
so,
let's do this
1.
in. No, let's do it in reverse. Just leave it how much. So my hair is an interesting one. I know the immediate response when I say something like this is people are going to call this denial. I know how bad my hair looked in that video. It was completely off the cuff and unplanned. Like Mike dropped the pedal off a few days prior, and then he said, "Right, just open it." And I was like, okay, film it. I hadn't washed my hair in a while, so my hair was particularly greasy, which meant it all just sort of clumped together. You know what I mean? But generally speaking, my hair is pretty thick.
Yeah,
pretty thick. I'm not Mike when it comes to the baldingness. But then I'm also not 20-year-old Levi, so I'm somewhere between those two positions.
Yeah, I am. As you can see, it looks like I'm starting to properly recede here. Right up. I've been using caffeine shampoo, which genuinely has made my hair thicker. It's actually made my beard grow faster as well, which is, I'm only assuming. But genuinely every day or two, I'm like, fucking hell, like, having to fucking trim it down, my moustache especially. But I think if it comes to serious baldy, in fact, not even that, see if I can think of a good enough cause, and if I thought I could raise enough money, I would happily shave my head.
Yeah.
Even though I'm scabby underneath because of my psoriasis.
Sure.
So we're going to go to the next question.
Yes.
What is Levi's favourite party cannon track?
Do you want to answer that on my behalf, Mike?
None of them.
None of them.
But if you had to pick a favourite, what would it be? What is the most tolerable to you? The least unenjoyable?
I can't even name any of them. So
poser.
Yeah.
Fucking poser.
No, definitely the opposite of a poser. because I'm not even going to pretend.
Credit where credit's due. You're telling the truth.
It's funny because I can think of like audio samples that you have at the start of tracks, but no, I would. It's one of those weird things, isn't it? Like I was listening to Mark Lettieri's new single last night, and I'd love to tell you what the name of that single is, but I don't fucking know because it's just not really the way. Well, maybe not people, but me. It's not the way I'm consuming music anymore. I'm just used to things being on Spotify and playing. And learning. If your song isn't named after the line that you repeat in the chorus, I'm probably not going to remember the name of it.
Yeah, that's why you're such a big Bon Jovi fan.
Yeah.
Blood on blood. Every single song.
Yeah, and so it should be.
It fucking works, doesn't it? You can't really argue with it.
Yeah, it makes your life much easier.
That's it.
Like we, there's a song on the Hellcat album called Hunter. And you'd never remember the name of that song because the word Hunter doesn't appear in the song in the slightest. It's literally just named after Lee's. He had a son that during the recording sessions, so it was literally just named after his son. If you didn't know that, you'll never remember the name of the song. So it's just the way it is. So
I feel you. I'm the same.
What's your favourite Party Cannon track?
My favourite Party Cannon track? That's a good question. I think probably Kickstand by Me because it's a great name and it's got some class riffs. Electric Soldier Porygon has got some really cool riffs. It's also fucking difficult to play. Russian Zombie Smack, Crocodile. That used to be really fun to play. We don't play that one as much anymore. Tyrone, You Put That Sugar Down, that was another favourite. Again, one we don't really play anymore. I'm not going to mention any of the new ones because I've not played them live yet to see how they feel. You know what I mean? Obviously not played them live. But those will be interesting when it comes to crowd interaction as well. Because we prefer the term living impaired. Usually gets people doing press ups and whatever during the slams, which is fucking dynamite. You know what I mean? You can't really go wrong.
Yeah.
So that answers. It's very megalomaniac of me to be like, I prefer all of these songs compared to As Junior. Like, none. So I know Levi wasn't as a massive Paul Gilbert fan. If you had the money, would you have bought his Pink Ice Destroyer?
So I'm going to segue this into a question that I have for Mike. I did a video over the last few days talking about 5 signature guitars that I would buy if I had the money. And the thing that sort of goes hand in hand with that is it always depends what you mean by had the money. You know what I mean? Like the number one on my list was the Zakk Wylde Gibson Les Paul, right? You can buy one of those for maybe £3,500. Okay, if I had £4,000 in the bank, no, I wouldn't buy one of those guitars. If I had £10,000 in the bank, no, I wouldn't buy one of those guitars. If I had £20,000 in the bank, no, I wouldn't buy one of those guitars. If I had £1 million in the bank, yes, I'd buy one of those guitars. You know what I mean? Like there's always an amount of money that you could have whereby you would absolutely purchase something. So I'm sure there's an amount of money that I could have had in my bank that would have resulted in me buying that Paul Gilbert Pink Ice Destroyer, but it would be quite a high amount of money because it's certainly not. Well, I'm thinking about it. I did look at that guitar a lot growing up. It would have been cool to have it, but let me put it this way: it would be a tough buy for me because I don't think, for me, it wasn't worth what it sold for. Even though I made the argument on the show that it could have sold for more, it would have sold for more if he'd done an auction on it rather than just putting it up for a fixed price. Yeah, so there are a bunch of signature guitars I'd love to have, and this actually isn't even a signature guitar. This is an artist-owned custom guitar. But of all of the artist-owned custom guitars that I could have, or not even custom guitars, just artist-owned instruments that I could have, that probably wouldn't be mega high on my list of priorities. But I'm going to throw it over to you, Mike. If you could buy, let's say you've got that £1 million in the bank, and you could go out and buy some signature guitars, what pops into your mind?
If I had that K-Mac money, I think... See that as if he's fucking rolling in it. He's doing all right, but... Can I include Artist One-Off Customs?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Isan Iceman that Kendo showed us, that is just such a classy guitar.
The Tosin Abasi style.
Yeah, exactly. The kind of
colour
white,
scheme.
flamed quilted maple, the tortoiseshell pickguard and the gold hardware. Just beautiful, genuinely beautiful. The proper old school tailpiece that came off the, I think it was the Artist series or the Music Man series or whatever it are. Roadstar 2 potentially, but you know the one I'm talking about. It's hard to say, man. Is it Wes Hodge that's playing the 7-string Ibanez Iceman these days with the reverse headstock and alluvial?
I have no idea.
No, but
Sounds a bit
alluvial have
metal
just
for
dropped
me.
alluvial have just dropped a new track, and I'm sure it is Wes Hodge that's playing it. But it's a 7-string blacked out Iceman with a reverse headstock Ibanez headstock. It's fucking pimp. But he's put a sticker on it, and I think the sticker is actually a Misfit sticker. So not only did he face a cool guitar, he's defaced a cool guitar with a terrible band.
I
mean,
think
that's obviously personal.
Your hesitation on this kind of answers the question. Like it highlights how different people we are. Because my video was meant to be 5 signature guitars that I would own, and I ended up going with the John 5 Telly, the Andy Wood Telly, the Brett Garcet ESP, the Sean Lane Vigier, and the Gibson Zach Wild. And it just wasn't
but
enough.
No Brett Mason?
No, because I wouldn't own one of those now. Fuck them. I put 2 honourable mentions in, and the honourable mentions were the Per Nilsson Singularity 7 True Temperament, which I think is a cool looking guitar. And I also mentioned the Buckethead Les Paul, because even though I'm not a Buckethead fan, I think that's a really fucking cool Les Paul. I'd love to have one of those.
It's so unique.
But the point is, like, it was easy for me to just reel off a bunch of guitars that I'd love to have, signature guitars that I'd love to have, because that type of marketing clearly works on me. Whereas with you, you're like, oh, well, I guess I'd go maybe this one that wasn't actually a signature model. Also, it has more strings than I play. Oh, and here's another one that also has more strings than I play. Like, you're just not suckered in by it. You play whatever you like rather than playing what other people play. So,
generally speaking, and I think it's maybe down to experiences with signature guitars not quite panning out how I wanted them to. Like, I always thought the Gems played lovely, but I was never big on the aesthetics of them. Not because I think they look bad, they're just not my style.
Yeah.
Same with the Satch, the GS 100s, 1000s, whatever else. Great guitars. Wouldn't really necessarily play one or have one because I'm not big on 22 fret guitars.
Sure.
And I find the body's very comfortable, but also slide off my legs when I'm sitting down playing. I got far too used to just having like a block body, like an RG or whatever. And when I had the Chuck Schuldiner Stealth, obviously we've spoke about this a few times. We're even speaking about it earlier on. Like getting a guitar, thinking, I mean, I got an incredible deal on it, so it doesn't really matter what happened. But being like, this will be something else, man. This is going to be ridiculous. And I got it, and I'm like, this is a shit tip. Not because it was badly made, because it was made to somebody else's specs.
Sure.
And I hadn't looked into those specs to see if it was what I was going to enjoy.
Well, I kind of want to throw, like, it's not a caveat, but like when somebody asks me that question, the question that I'm hearing them ask isn't necessarily what signature guitar would you love to buy and make your main guitar. For me, when I hear that question, especially when it's, if money wasn't a problem, I'm thinking about what guitar would I buy to put on the wall type thing. So, if I had the money and I bought a Gibson Zach Wild Les Paul with the Bullseye, I'm not going to play it. I'm just not going to play it. I might noodle on it every now and again, but it's certainly not going to be my main guitar in any of my videos. I'm certainly never going to go out and play it. When the world starts up again and I'm out playing Melissa's solo album with her, I can assure you I won't be doing it on a Zach Wild Les Paul. It's just not right, but it would be a nice ornament for me. It would be a nice piece of kind of childhood nostalgia would be the best way of me putting it. So I'm really thinking as a nostalgia question rather than what would be a nice tool to add to your arsenal.
Fair enough. Well, just before we move on, then there's 3 that kind of sprung to mind that if it's literally just what would you like to own and you have the money to do so, right? We haven't seen any of them yet in the wild, but the purple Dino Cazares Ormsby signature, that thing is going to be fucking beautiful, man. The colour of purple is so vibrant. The other 2 that came to mind just as you were talking there, a Phil Collin, the Jackson Phil Collin signature. Okay. Beautiful, always got the most incredible quilt tops or flame tops. Cool configuration and generally speaking a workhorse. And the third, the one that I would genuinely have on the wall, despite, and this might surprise people, have you saw the purple glitter Kirk Hammett Ouija that came out a few years ago? I'd have one of them on the wall any day. That is a cool looking guitar.
Okay.
Unusual considering I always shit on Kirk Hammett, but
You were allowed to shit on people we love.
yes,
It's a sign of how much we love them.
Used to love.
Yeah. Well, but
I don't know. Yeah, he's got a nostalgic place in my heart. I'll give him that.
And you still love the things that you loved him for. You still love Ride the Lightning. You still love Master of Puppets. Come on.
I love the albums. I love the place he had in my journey to understanding how much I was into guitar and where it took me.
That's how I think about Paul Gilbert. You know, this question was about Paul Gilbert. Like, I have no interest in... Paul Gilbert had a new single come out this week. I don't care. I'm just not interested in listening to it. Someone sent me a video of him playing... what was he playing? Smoke on the Water with someone? And they were, and you know, it was the typical, like, he's still not put that slide down, Levi. And I put it on and immediately knew what I was in for. Paul Gilbert playing vocal melodies on the slide, and everything sounded really staccato because he plays slide with a pick, and it just doesn't... I'm glad that he's having a good time, but it's just isn't for me in the same way that, like, Kirk Hammett in 2021 isn't for you. Like, yeah, sorry, Paul, you lost me a long time ago, but that's okay. I still love you for what you did. Had some Mr. Big on earlier this week, and I enjoyed it. Felt like a teenager again, which is nice. It's been a long time since I was a teenager.
I think it's really strange how much you love Mr. Big compared to how much or how publicly you're known for loving Paul Gilbert and Racer X. You know what I mean? I don't think people understand that that's probably more of your go-to these days than Racer X would be.
It had been my go-to for a long time for several reasons. Like, Racer X have got more of a metal edge to them, whereas Mr. Big are a rock band. And I'm always talking about it. I like bands, I like singers, and I like songs. And I mentioned this to a student last night. We were talking about Paul Gilbert, actually, and an instrumental guitar. And I was like, I hate instrumental guitar. Hate's a bit of a heavy term. Nothing inspires me less than instrumental guitar. I'm just not interested in instrumental guitar. I'll listen to it, but it's never going to be my go-to. And I said, I grew up listening to Paul Gilbert, and Paul Gilbert was one of my heroes, and I love the fact that he was just always in a band and he was always playing music. You think Nuno Bettencourt, where's his instrumental album? He hasn't needed one. He's just been in bands, and that's really fucking cool to me. And then 2006 hits, and Paul Gilbert releases Get Out of My Yard, and then suddenly you get this swath of instrumental albums, and I'm just like, no, this isn't what I want. Even if you were just doing your solo stuff where it was you singing, like Burning Organ's a great album, Spaceship One's a great album, like I want Alligator Farm's a great album. I just want songs. Classics. So, I like Mr. Big because they're songs.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And the last question was, how do we feel about Gibson buying Mesa Boogie? Mike, you want to take that one?
Not good. I don't feel optimistic about it. An insider source, someone we know that's close to that, mentioned that it should only be a change, and we've spoken about this before actually, it should only be a change in the distribution networks and essentially how many more places they can get stuff out and how easily and potentially how quickly we can get stuff out as well. I don't know how long that will last, if that is the constraints to the relationship. I am very hopeful that they do not fuck with it too much. But I would also say, knowing a little bit about Mesa Boogie and their designs, they might do a bit better being part of the Gibson brand if Gibson can get them better parts at cheaper prices and bigger stock, because I remember distinctly Bill, God rest him, Bill Heggie, that opened and then worked in Magnum Sound after he retired or sold it on. Bill was actually in charge of the warranty repairs for Mesa Boogie for the UK through their distributor at the time, which is now with Ollie at Fretronics. We shout out to Ollie, good guy. Anyway, long story short, I remember Bill going through stuff, and I'd imagine Ollie's maybe done the same, but going through whatever amp. And have you ever seen the gut shots of some of these boogies, like the Mark 5s and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, it's like the busiest place you've ever seen with the most amount of components, and it's well done, but it's so busy. I remember Bill sending them an email going, right, fix this, this was wrong, that was wrong. Also, these parts are cheap and shit. Change them for these, swap this, do that, and they'll be more reliable.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's just a cost saving thing or if it's availability, an oversight, or whatever. But like, Bill knew his stuff. Bill was an amp engineer, was building, genuinely nearly building Mesa Boogies before Mesa Boogies. Like, honestly, he had a rectifier that came out before Mesa had built amps. So had Bill pushed that line, he probably would have had a ridiculous backline of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully,
yeah,
things go well for Mesa, and all those lawyers and doctors can still use their Mark Vs in the pub.
Yeah, I think it's a really fascinating one, and I'll do this in like 15 seconds. Right? I think it's a really fascinating one because Gibson has had a very interesting history over the last few years, and while we don't have a lot of good things to say about them, somehow they have not only remained in business after almost going bankrupt, but the amount of money that they seem to have at their disposal now is not a cause for concern, but is a cause for optimism to me. It must have cost them a lot to get Dave Mustaine on board. It must have cost them a lot to get Boogie. I know that they are currently doing an app to compete with Fender's Fender Play, their app. Jamie Humphries is doing a lot of the videos for it, and I know how much they're paying him, and it's not chump change. Like, they're investing real fucking heavy into everything at the moment. And yeah, although I'm skeptical, the anarchist in me is kind of interested to see where this goes, because best case scenario, it's fantastic. Worst case scenario, everything blows up, and it'll be really interesting to see where it goes, and I'll enjoy that as well. So, and we'll get to talk about it. So, thank you very much for the question, Russell. We are going to move on to Samuel's question, slightly juicier one here.
Yeah, there seem to be quite a few paragraphs here that I can read through, and for what I've skimmed, there's some really interesting questions in there and some points. So Samuel writes, "Hi fellas, love the show, thanks for entertaining each week. I struggle a lot with sleep and require a cocktail of prescription drugs and podcasts in order to relax. You guys really help calm me down and drift off, even when you're in rage or roast mode, so cheers. I currently live in hope you'll read out my previously sent sizzling erotic fan fiction, but there's another topic I and perhaps others would be interested to get your insight on." Is this the person that sent the original fan fiction, or is this more?
No, this is more.
Even more? Oh my god.
We got a fair amount of fan fiction, erotic fan fiction, and I read it and was horrified and didn't know how I felt about reading it on the air.
I genuinely think it would be really funny if you and I had an ASMR OnlyFans, and there's no images in it, it's just me and you reading out the fan fiction we get sent. You think we could monetize that? I think we'd make money.
And then Mike approached Levi from behind.
You wish.
Girthy rod in hand.
His oaken fuck weapon pulsed with excitement. There you go. You want fucking horrible? I'll give you horrible. So I'll continue with Samuel's question. Thank you. Have you seen the new Chapman guitars range for 2021? It's no secret you guys are not fans, and I wasn't either until I saw a few of the models they're putting out this year. They clearly bit off more than they could chew with the so-called British standard range a short way back. If someone's got 3 or 4 grand knocking about, they're more likely to spend it on a custom shop Fender, a really nice Les Paul, or a PRS, rather than a Chapman Monkey Lord. I always thought the branding was probably quite a bad thing.
Yeah.
Even just hearing the name Chapman, I don't know why, I just, like, the local butchers here is Chapman's.
Yeah.
So I just associate it with...
Well, and also Chapman is knocking the door, right? Knocking on someone's door. So when I hear the term Chapman, I kind of think somebody that comes and knocks on your door and tries to sell you shit.
That's a really good connotation to put in there, that's right. Fair enough. Which, funnily enough, adds on to what we're going to talk about, snake oil salesmen, snake oil pedals. Notwithstanding, they're now putting out guitars with ace specs like stainless steel frets, Duncan pickups and roasted maple necks, as well as some sweet metallic and pearlescent finishes for a less outrageous price. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to buy one. I spend my money on established red machines from Jackson and Ibanez. But what do you guys think of their guitars generally? In last week's show, you gave a quick roasting to the snake oil pedals. Care to cut a promo on Chapman guitars? Or are they any good in your eyes? Would love to hear you guys discuss the topic. Cheers, Samuel. Thanks, Samuel. We've never really deep dived this conversation, but we definitely have spoken about Rob and the Chapman guitars back and forth.
Yeah.
can I be really, really honest and objective?
I would
haven't
love
played
you
enough
to.
of them. I haven't played enough of them to really give a fair analysis.
Yeah, you have.
I haven't actually. I've
You
maybe
don't need
played
to have
2 or
even had one
3.
in your hands, right? They're all made in the same place that all of these shit imports are made in. He's not the first company to do it. You know what I mean? Like, you've played Far Eastern guitars before.
But I don't think that is necessarily an indicator of the quality of a guitar, because there's factories out there that put out dog shit for one brand and incredible guitars for another. So I think it's way more about the materials and the
Yeah.
QC than it is the factory. And the stuff, even like some of the cheap shit that comes out of, like, case in point, my Chibson.
Mm-hmm.
That is, it's not a prestige guitar at
Sure.
all. It's cheap shit from China. It is, but it plays nice.
Sure.
It came together quite well. So where does that fit in that bracket?
Well,
You know what I mean?
like, you make a really good point when you talk about like the quality of materials, and we know from dealing with Perry that when he's having stuff manufactured, he has to have the materials sent to them, and we're not just talking hardware, we're talking wood as well. So that's something that, that's down to the person that's having the stuff manufactured, and then quality control also makes a huge difference as well.
Absolutely.
We know the system that's in place for Ormsby, so we know how the quality control works with those, and it works. We know the system that was in place for solar guitars. We know that worked. Past tense.
That's funnily enough. I was just going to say, without Ola being there to overview, as seems to have been the process so far, things have slipped through the cracks. And
we know that with the first ever run of Chapman guitars, way back when they initially launched, there were none of these quality control checks in place. So when those guitars showed up, they were so shoddy in terms of their presentation that they needed refrets and redresses on the frets. So when they were sold by Andertons, they sort of came with a warranty repair on them already, of you need to have these brought into us or taken to somebody to have the frets sorted out to make them actually an acceptable standard. I know, right? I absolutely know that over the years Rob has upped his game in terms of quality control. There's a reason the brand still is doing what it's doing, and it's because they're providing reasonably spec'd guitars for reasonable prices. I don't really want to pat anybody on the back. I'm trying to look for the exact quote that you put in here. So Ace specs like stainless steel frets, Duncan pickups, and roasted maple necks. You can have anything made. It's not difficult. My issue with the Chapman guitars has always been, it is, as much respect as I have for the hustle, for the business hustle of it, Chapman guitars were not designed by Rob. They were designed by people on his forum. He took votes and polls on things to get people involved in the things that they thought that they would spend money on. And then he had them people pre-order all of those guitars because they'd helped design them, so of course they'd pre-order them. He set up a business for himself, and like I say, respect the hustle. He set up a business for himself by taking no financial risk. He had an established audience, and because this idea of cheaper guitars manufactured in the Far East was a relatively new idea for the general consumer at the time, it was novel, and therefore young people got involved, borrowed £300 from their parents, and set up a business for Rob. And like I say, hats off to him. He's managed to keep that fucking hustle going. But let's not forget where it came from as an idea. That's just fair. Think that lots of other companies have come out since and have done better jobs of it.
Yeah, that's fair. I totally get where you're coming from. I haven't heard a lot of positive reviews of the Chapman stuff until recent, when it seems like, as you say, they've upped their game. I really like the look of the Ruby Masad signatures. The Bs are really nice, or Bs, however you want to say it. Can't deny that. They do have some good looking guitars in their arsenal, but I just remember when they came out, I never tried one, and the only person I knew who had one was Lyle. And then all of a sudden he wasn't playing it, and I don't actually know what happened there, but I just thought that speaks volumes for a guy that's went from. Did they not play it like the Monkey Lord Festival or whatever the fuck it was called?
Yeah.
I actually thought at first, like, here's a weird take that people probably won't believe. When I first heard the Rob Chapman and everything he was doing, I was like, that's a really clever way to get into the market and engage with people and actually give people what they want.
Yeah,
it's great. It's an actual. It's like the roots of it are like almost the community that we've built. We've been lucky to have a lot of people who want to come in and chat with us and go back and forth and just have an honest and open place for discussion, which I'm assuming was where Monkey Lord, was it the forums was a start for Rob Chapman? I mean, it's up there with the same vein of TTM in terms of brand name, but we'll leave that there. But I'd always thought to start with, like, that's a really cool way to engage people and give them what they want.
Yeah.
But as you say, for that to then be the way to build the business, and if they're coming out the factory where the brand are having to say, the minute you get your guitar, you need to bring it back so we can fix it, it's not a good start. Not a good start.
To me, it's like the perfect example of right place, right time. How Rob's built a career for himself. Right place, right time. Because if he didn't have the business he has, and he was starting from the ground now, that man would fail in the industry. You know, there's just no doubt in my mind. There's too much serious competition from serious players that know what the fuck they're talking about. Rob was very early in the internet influencer, social media guitar type thing, and built up an audience because of that. But it's an audience that's absolutely stagnated. You know, if you go on Social Blade and look at his stats, like, his channel is not growing. It's been dead in the water for over a year now. And
funny enough, when's the last time we spoke about him and what were we talking about?
It was KDH thing, and it was a fair while ago. But you and him and KDH arguing. So that's maybe probably a big part of the stagnation. Not necessarily that you were involved or that KDH was, but that it was completely negative. Everyone we're talking about, and quite rightly. And let's use that as a way to get onto the last part of this question, right? Which is which highlights my actual issue here. If you want to go and buy a Chapman, absolutely go and buy a Chapman. And I know, obviously, I put up that one video where I was defending KDH, and I had to because I was watching Rob send his fans to abuse KDH and to threaten KDH and to try and dox him and all of this shit. And I witnessed it happening, and I was like, this is not right, because you've lied here, Rob. I vividly remember when you threatened to sue me unless I took a Facebook post down, and when you messaged everybody that had also commented on it and told them the exact same, and most of them all deleted their comments because they were scared of you, but I wasn't fucking scared of you. You're a coward and a bully. I appreciate that, and it sounds like I have some sort of ridiculous bias when it comes to this, but if you can put that aside, what it really comes down to is, from a consumer perspective, where Samuel talks about the other brands like investing in Jackson and investing in Ibanez, those are smarter purchases. Those are smarter purchases, because while very few guitars hold their value, a Jackson or an Ibanez is going to hold its value considerably more effectively than a Chapman or a Kiesel or a Vigier. Vigier's tank in value. You buy a Vigier, you've lost more than half of the value of the guitar the second you've bought it, because the resale value on them is dreadful.
There's a couple that probably spike that trend, though. Surely the Sean Lane Excaliburs.
They don't come up for sale that often. When they do, you're looking at maybe £1,300, and those are £2,500 new. So
I didn't think they were that cheap second hand.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought those would hold value, because I've played one and it was something else.
Yeah, great guitars, and I'm considering
tremendous.
Still considering grabbing one. Honestly, they don't hold their value in the way they should. Like you see the fretlesses sell for £1,000 when they come up. I think the point is there just aren't enough of them on the market. People buy them and they tend to keep them, and when they do sell them, they're a tough sell because the brand's not big and popular. With the Chapman stuff, I think that you can go in any buy and sell group, no matter where you're located, any buy and sell group on Facebook, and you're going to find a couple of Chapmans in there. And I think that they hit the second-hand market at kind of the same rate Kiesels do. And I'm not saying, let me be clear on this, I'm not saying that Kiesels hit the second-hand market because people buy them, regret the purchase, and then immediately try and sell them because they don't like the guitar. That's not the comment I'm making. I'm just commenting on the objective fact that there are a lot of Kiesels in the second-hand market. And if there are a lot of something in the second-hand market, that gives you an idea of what the demand is going to be in terms of the purchase power on the second-hand market. The Chapman guitars will not hold their value in the same way that a Jackson or an Ibanez does. So if you want to buy one of those guitars and you're buying it to keep it, by all means do that. It's why I never minded buying Vigiers, because I never intended to sell any of them, you know? But if you're the kind of guy that buys guitars and you play it for a year and then you sell it and you buy something else, those aren't smart purchases. So be smart. Don't be bowled over by the fact that, oh, they've got stainless steel frets on their guitars and they've got Seymour Duncan pickups, and so what? Everybody's got that now. All of these cheap import guitars have got that now. That's not what sets a guitar apart.
You're right, but I think it's also good to recognise that we're seeing the bar being raised by brands left, right, and centre for what you should get for your money and what you're going to get for your money, which is good because there's a lot of brands out there that build solid guitars. You don't have to put a lot of money into if you're trying to get something for you and you're maybe on a budget. Ibanez have always been good for having the low end RGs. If you buy something with a solid tailpiece, string through or whatever, really change the tuners, change the pickups, maybe upgrade the pots, and you've got something that just works.
Yep.
That's always kind of been the way I've seen it anyway. I don't know enough about the snake oil stuff either, but the very fact that they named it snake oil pedals doesn't fill me with faith. I was just having a wee quick Google while you were talking there as well, and on Anderton's and the snake oil website, they are talking about the two pedals, the very thing in the Marvelous engine, and we are proud to launch with 2 award-winning pedals for your guitar rig. Now, the award-winning at the bottom in asterisk is physical product design at the Drum Design 2019 awards. What the fuck has this got to do with drums?
Yeah.
And the physical design is probably going to be them talking about the fact that they're quite nice enclosures. They're that kind of
the branding.
Exactly, right, which would have been nothing to do with Rob.
No.
He'll have paid someone to design the front of that, as most companies do. I think that's misrepresentative in my mind.
Yeah, it is. It would be like me manufacturing a pedal, right? Selling it for £15,000, winning an award for being the most overpriced pedal on the market, and then me using that in the advertising and saying this is an award-winning pedal. It's relying on you assuming what I mean by that. It's relying on me misleading you.
Obfuscated. Hiding the truth in plain sight.
Yeah.
Cheeky
you
bastard.
get the idea. I don't think we need to talk about the snake oil stuff. I already feel sick that we've devoted this much time to Rob Chapman. But if anybody out there has any positive experiences with the guitars, I'm sure there are many. He sold many guitars, so there's going to be positive experiences. That's all good. Let's move on and talk about Steve Vai briefly. We'll do a quick one on this.
Very much so. Somebody said, I think it was actually Andy sent me this, Andy Torrance. Have you seen who the top comment is on that Steve Vai video?
I have not, actually. Hang on.
Kiko.
Is it?
Master, so awesome. Get well soon. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, before we jump the gun here, Steve Vai had put a video out on his YouTube just 2 days ago of a new song called Knappsack, which is KNAPPSACK, and it's Steve playing a song with one hand, and as usual, absolutely fucking showing everybody else up. Now, I think it was Andy said to me, or somebody else was like, I don't know how to feel about this because there's bits in it where I think it might be too clean for me to really believe that that's real.
Oh, but let's be 100% clear on this. If you don't understand this, you don't get this yet. If you're watching that video of Steve Vai and you think that's played live in studio, I can't help you. I simply cannot help you, right? But I also don't think Vai's presenting it as this is me playing this live in the studio. That's miming to
along with it.
Yeah, he's playing along to the track, because why wouldn't you? That's just the way that that's the done thing. Like, there's no issue with that being the done thing. The issue is with you then looking at it going, can you believe that he is? You tagged me or you were tagged in a Caswell post, another Buried Alive post, that ridiculous fucking ridiculous, what do they call it, dubstep thing, right? And let me be clear, I played that track on loop multiple times, not because I was looking for evidence that it wasn't legit, but because I thought it sounded really fucking cool. I was like, fair play, that's like, I see what you've done there, very creative, I actually think it sounds really fucking cool. But the guy that tagged you in that, if you need to explain to him that that's not what that guitar sounds like in the room when that part is being played, if you have to explain this to people, you cannot help them. There is no fucking helping these people. And to me, that's the situation with this Vai thing. Like, I love what he's done here. I listened to a little bit of the track. It's not again, it comes down to that idea of it's instrumental guitar, right? I don't fucking care. I'm just not interested anymore. But I like
enough.
the kind of the health positivity concept here. I like the message of, if you're having problems, that doesn't mean that you have to stop playing guitar. You just need to maybe look at things from a different perspective. You need to be a little bit more creative. I often encourage people that have left-hand problems or problems with tension in their hands. I encourage them to pick up slide guitar because it's incredibly easy to play slide guitar in a kind of less impactful way on the physical. It's less stressful on the body to play slide guitar. So there's nothing should ever get in the way of you playing music, and I like that that's what Steve has done here. But what do you think about it?
I actually really like the song as well. The first wee bit of it, I wasn't too keen. I'm not a massive Steve Vai fan. It's not that I dislike him or whatever, but I couldn't just sit and listen to albums on end. Maybe put on Passion and Warfare every now and then. And the occasional song like Lotus Feet or it's not Building the Temple, what's
Building
it
the
called?
Church.
Building the Church.
Yeah.
I mean, there you go, like a song that I really like and I couldn't remember the name of it. And like the other classics, For the Love of God, Bad Horsey, you know what I mean? Like the ones that people know, Tender Surrender. But about halfway into this song, I was like, this really reminds me of something. And I actually thought it had very much vibes of Weather Report.
Okay.
Like really big vibes of Weather Report. And there's a specific part of a Weather Report song. Wait, did I Google it? Because I kind of forgot to do that last night when I was thinking about it. I think it's actually a remark you made. There's a synth solo in that towards the end that does a lot of octave jumps and it relies a lot on expression. And I think he's using like a Q knob or whatever on the synth while he's doing that, like almost like a wah. But Steve's doing the same thing during his solo when he's playing that stuff, and it just really put me in mind of that proggy jazz area. And I was like, this is really cool because it just, if that's a nod, it's a nod that I got and I really appreciated. If it's not, then it's just a cool coincidence for me. But I think I'm glad it's not just the novelty of, look, I can do this with one hand, or at least it looks like I'm doing with one hand. There is actually some musicality to it, and I think it just shows how versatile Steve is. I quite like it.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna spend my time sitting here shitting on Steve. I did have a bunch of kind of industry guys send me a message and go, man, you've got to make a video talking about this Steve Vai thing because this is being blown out of proportion. And I was like, because I'm relied on among industry people to be the guy that says what everybody else is thinking. But I don't
There's
have
a battle
that
to be
much.
had. Here's your shield.
I don't have that much hate for this. Certainly not for Steve when it comes to this.
No.
Just maybe the misunderstanding of what that video is, and that's not how it sounds there in the room, and it's too perfect, especially for someone like with what is functionally a disability. And I wouldn't want people to think that I don't like Steve Vai. Like, I'm not a fan of Steve's music per se. I own a fair few of his albums, but I've not delved into listening to him for hours and hours and hours on end. Probably because a big part of me didn't want to have Steve Vai as an influence because he sounds too much like Steve Vai. You know what I mean? But
he only sounds like himself. I get what you're saying.
You can't borrow a Steve Vai lick.
No, you can't. You can't.
It sounds out of place.
From everything from like the way he plays it to his note choices.
Yeah.
Everything about him is just Steve Vai. You're right.
I can't count the amount of times I've watched live at the Astoria, that classic live concert. It's great live concert. And then when it's Where the Wild Things Are, I believe, was the next live DVD he put out. I remember when that came out, Doug got that. We got it on Blu-ray, and I went around his house the night that came out. It's the one where it's there's a violin player in the band, and we watched that entire concert from start to finish whilst eating a curry, and thought it was incredible. And then watched the entire thing again, and then the next day I went over and we watched it again because we just loved it that much. It's great. Like, I've spent a lot of time watching Steve. There's not a hatred for Steve, what he does.
He's a ridiculously talented entertainer. Ridiculously.
Yeah. So I'm glad to see that kind of your comment about Kiko and saying the master thing. Yeah, there are a lot of people that look at Steve like that. It's just, of course, musically so far removed from where I am. But there's another kind of Steve Vai related story that we should just segue this into, and that is Steve Vai to join Patreon and here's what supporters will get for $5 a month. I didn't even bother sharing this link with Mike because I can summarize it really briefly. I find this really, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I really do struggle with this because obviously I rely on Patreon to make an income, and the reason I do that is because I don't have the big publishing company and the big record labels and all these other ways to bring in tons and tons and tons of fucking money. Let's not forget, Steve Vai is a multi-millionaire, and I'm not saying that Steve Vai doesn't have the right to be on Patreon. I'm saying that Patreon feels inherently grassroots to me, and it's helping independent content creators. So for Steve to come in, let's not pretend that all the money that he makes on Patreon is going to be new money that comes to the platform. There's going to be some new money that comes to the platform, but there's also going to be people that will migrate away from other supporters, other people that they do support on Patreon. My audience is a different audience, to be fair. I would be very surprised if any of my patrons decide that their monthly budget that they have to spend on entertainment on Patreon is going to go from me to Steve Vai, because as I say, we are so different in terms of the content that we create. But that is going to happen for a bunch of people on Patreon, a bunch of more independent content creators. And the thing I kind of have to say to you out there is really think hard where you are spending your money in the music industry. We've made this argument about live concerts. We've made this money about buying music in the past. It's too often I see people like they stream all of their music, so bands essentially get no money, and they have a small budget that they use every year for buying either tickets to gigs or they buy some expensive like collector's editions versions of albums. But it's never the smaller creators that you do that for. It's, oh, well, I pay for Spotify and I also spent £200 to go and see Metallica live. But I've spent too much on going to see bands this year. I can't go and see more concerts. Like, I just have to look at that and go, I appreciate that you really want to see Metallica, but that's £200 that could have gone to a lot of smaller content creators, which helps the industry grow and move forward rather than helps the mic point, the mega rich become even fucking richer. That's what I see when I see Steve Vai being on Patreon, personally. Bitter. I'm a bitter, miserable motherfucker. That's me.
That's fair enough, mate. That's fair enough. I don't think I feel strongly about it at all. I think I would need to see what happens afterwards. If Steve's putting it out there where he's engaging with people and giving fans a chance to get even closer to his content and him and his creative process, etc.
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be good. I'll just need to wait and see. I reserve judgment until then. But I totally get your point though. I get your point. It's like it's a bit backwards, isn't it?
Yeah. And like I say, it feels weird saying it because I still do feel that Patreon is for everybody. Services like this are for everybody. And there's nothing inherently wrong with Steve Vai being on there, but it was kind of like when Megadeth crowdfunded their last album. You know what I mean? It just left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth because, Dave, you don't need to crowdfund this album. You simply don't need to crowdfund this album. And by doing so, it's not that you're certainly not ripping off the people that are pre-ordering the album or funding you via the crowdfund. That's not what's happening here. But you are making life significantly more difficult for the other people that are crowdfunding albums at the same time. Because now suddenly it's like, do I want to pre-order the new Party Cannon album on Kickstarter, or do I want to pre-order the new Megadeth album? I can give Party Cannon £50 for all of these cool fucking perks, or I can give Dave Mustaine £50 for virtually fuck all. I'll buy the album and he might mention my name in a video at some point. Like, they're gonna go Dave Mustaine every fucking time, and it's capitalism, isn't it? Which I don't have issue with, but
you can still point at the flaws.
Yeah, the flaw in it isn't necessarily the system. It's the people that are in the system and don't play it a little bit smarter.
Yep.
Dave Mustaine doesn't need your money. Steve Vai doesn't need your fucking money. But there are lots of independent content creators out there that do. Yeah.
Teespring, link below.
Well, so when you put your hand up there, like, I thought you were talking about you, not us. Because, like, you're talking about, like, looking for work at the start of this podcast. I want to be really clear. When I say this, I'm not talking about me. I do fine. I do more than okay. Like, I'm not looking at this and going, oh, if only Steve I wasn't in the industry, I'd be making so much money that I'd be the next Steve. That's not how I feel about things. I don't need to make all that much more money in the industry. I do all right to pay my bills, pay my mortgage. I'm fine. But there are tons of other content creators or people that want to be content creators or guys like Mike who deserve to be making more money from music, deserve to be out there. Deserve is a wrong word because it feels there's a sense of entitlement with that, but certainly has the talents, if you like, to go out there and do things, but knows it would be a financial suicide because you'd go out there, do all the talented things, and nobody. It's not that people wouldn't care; they'd be like, "Oh man, that was absolutely incredible. Let me just go and give $50 to Dave Mustaine again."
You're not wrong. It does put you off, and I think it also puts me off that I don't want to monetize something that I enjoy as a hobby for it to become a job and then I fall out of love with it.
Yeah.
Like, I've been quite open the last wee while about how I'm falling in and out of love with guitar back and forth, and I think lockdown's a big part of that, to be honest. But I think it would be very easy for me to turn that and make it worse, and then fall into a pattern of just not enjoying it and not making money off it because I'm not being genuine to it, and not doing it because I want to do it and enjoy it and engage with people, but more so because I need to hit this mark and I want this amount of money out of it, which I wouldn't want to do.
Sure.
Excuse me for 2 minutes, I need to run to the loo.
Sure.
2 hours later.
Okay, so after that strange little segue there, we are going to move on and talk about Wes Borland very briefly on this one. This is super interesting. While Mike was away, I clicked on some of the links in the description for this, and there's a video of Limp Bizkit from Download years and years ago playing Full Nelson live, and you can see Wes Borland absolutely fucking slaying it on his very strange, and this is, back in the day, very strange 4-string guitar that's kind of a bass but also kind of a guitar. Well, Wes Borland has just posted a picture of PRS having made him one of these, which is super cool. This is a weird bass guitar, 4-string guitar with a tremolo on it, and there's annotations on the image that there's a knob for the bass and there's a knob for the guitar, and then there's 2 outputs, one for the bass and one for the guitar. So, yeah. What do you think about this?
I fucking love it, man. And only because it's Wes Borland.
Sure.
Like, if anybody else came out with a 4-string, trimmed up, half bass, half guitar PRS, I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
What? Are you fucking mental? Why would you have something like that?
Yeah.
But
Wes Borland totally gets away with this.
the main reason I posted it was like, this will be used for something very cool.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't realised there was a couple of songs that are in like really low tunings, like Nuki's and F sharp.
Yeah.
That's 8-string territory. And I've never seen, certainly not back then, Wes use anything other than 6-string PRSs.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine the gauge of string he had on that, or whatever he was doing. Maybe he had one of these hybrids back then, as you say, for in the studio, and we just never got to see it. But
like I say, he was using them live, so like, yeah.
So I'm saying, like, it maybe never seen much of it,
Sure.
but obviously there's inspiration from this for somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah. It would be easy to look at something like this, I think, and take that old boomer approach of, but why would you need this? And think like the idea is to replace the bass player. And so you've got a guitar player that's playing both the guitar part and the bass part at the same time with 2 separate signals. Limp Bizkit still have a bass player. So this isn't him being the bass player. This is him having a guitar that is tuned where he needs it to be, but then he can also send out 2 signals, one to a guitar rig, and the sound will be processed off of that, like whatever effects he wants to have on that. Let's say, for argument's sake, he has like a chainsaw-y guitar buzz guitar sound going on with almost no bass, like all the bass EQ'd out of it, like a really fizzy, like crisp sound. And then your second signal is coming out and going through a bass rig. It's less top end on the sound, is a meaty bottom end to it, and then it's being amplified through a massive bass rig. What you've got at the end of that is one sound, because you'll hear it as one sound, but it's crafted in a way that gets you what you need it to be. This isn't an instrument where he's like, cool, now I've got this, I can be the bass player in the band. He's doing his thing with this, and I won't hear people talk smack about Wes Borland. I won't have it. The guy's a creative mastermind.
And while we're fucking at it, no one's going to talk shit about Sam Rivers, because Wes definitely isn't replacing Sam Rivers in that regard.
No. So, a shocking opinion. A shocking opinion, I know. But as much as Fred Durst, like, you just want to relentlessly punch him in the face, Limp Bizkit absolutely fucking had a sound. Absolutely had a sound. And I was talking to Melissa about them actually, funnily enough, earlier in the week, because again, she has no idea about metal. You know, and we're talking about when the world starts up again, and she's like, I can't imagine like ever having to find myself in the cat house. And I was like, well, I don't go to the cat house, but I'd absolutely drag you to a night at the cat house now just to make you feel uncomfortable. And she's like,
I'm definitely putting 2 guest tickets aside for you and her the next time we play in Scotland. 100%. Just to see what her reaction would be.
Yeah. I'm actually I'll announce this on this podcast. I'm actually planning another podcast. I'm going to be doing a podcast with Melissa.
You slut.
I know.
You
making
cheating slut. That's cool. That's cool. Tell us more.
Ridiculously difficult by upping my production schedule. But it will essentially be Melissa learning about metal. So think of it as like a podcast, a reactionary podcast, but from a much more educational and academic standpoint, having somebody that knows nothing about new metal, you know, sitting and before the podcast we'll listen to, you know, albums and things like that. I'll create a playlist on Spotify for people to check out, etc. And then we'll get to actually sit and talk about, I can talk about the history of how this stuff happened, why it was important and all of that stuff, and then having someone's perspective on it who is a musician of the highest level but also has no concept of these sounds and these things. I think it's going to result in some really interesting conversations. So
absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be fun.
I better be on as a guest.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We mentioned it before, but now I'm fleshing the idea out. You'll have to come on and just do an episode on Slam, because I can't do an episode on Slam.
I'm a poser. I totally admit it. If you need somebody that's going to talk about actual brutal death metal and the genre itself and its inception, Chris Ryan is the man for that. Chris seems to have a fucking historic knowledge of it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So cool guitar,
cool.
And you know, more on that as and when it happens. Be easier now. I've got my own house. Yeah. Fun times. What an exciting world we live in. I can't wait to see what Wes does with this. But the thing I would say is about Wes, the shame is always it's Fred Durst, isn't it? Like his voice fucking annoys me. Wes had another band, didn't he? In fact, I'm sure we mentioned this on the podcast before. His band did like one of the tracks for one of the Underworld films. The first Underworld film, there's that scene where I can't remember the name of the character, but the human that becomes a lichen in that film, in his when he transforms for the first time, and there's a night scene in the car, the music that plays is Wes Borland's band. And I remember hearing it at the time and going, man, this is so fucking cool. This sounds great. What is this? And then I found out it was Wes Borland. I'm like, well, there you go. That explains it.
Is it Blacklight Burns?
Maybe.
He's got a couple of different bands. Big Dumbface, The Damning Well, Eat the Day, Goat Slayer. Played him from first to last.
Are these just associated acts, though, or bands that he's actually been with?
It says associated acts,
yeah.
to be fair. Anyway,
yeah.
We'll just fucking crack on.
Cool.
I really, really enjoy Wes Borland stuff, so it will be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah. Here's a super quick story for you. Mike Patton singing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song for a new video game.
It's fucking so good. Just because it's Mike Patton. Like, Mike Patton can do anything. He's always up there. In fact, there is one for you. You need to get the Dillinger Escape Plan EP that he sung on for you, Melissa, to listen to.
Right.
King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime, I believe it was called. I'm just looking it up now. No, Irony is a Dead Scene. Sorry, talking shit. That is wild. It's only 4 tracks.
Right.
And the last one is an Aphex Twin cover.
Okay.
So it's bizarre, but that's one to listen to because it's just Mike Patton being Mike Patton.
Yeah. I thought this was worth mentioning just purely because the idea of a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game is exciting. Because of course we both love video games. What are you playing at the moment?
I've been playing. Wait, I'll tell you the name of it. So Super Mario Odyssey with Finley because he's fucking obsessed.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, waking me up at 5 a.m. because he's woke up to try and play it because he loves getting a wee shot at it before he goes to school or whatever. Yeah. And the other day, the first thing he said when he woke up, right before he opened his eyes, I was like, "You need to get up, Finley." Super Mario Odyssey. I swear to God, man, I was fucking ruffled with it. so he's totally obsessed with it now. But he's been playing that. I've been playing a wee bit of that, and I've been playing Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts.
Okay.
Shite, so shite. But at the same time, like it's kind of addictive.
Yeah.
Because the maps are huge, the levels are fairly in depth, and there's challenges in them. And there's something about bullet cam slow mos, are you blowing people's heads to bits that you just kind of, I don't know, kind of gravitate towards.
Yeah.
So I've just been passing my time with that and the usual DayZ. Occasionally, in fact, I've uninstalled Warzone. Not even playing that anymore.
Change.
Nah,
Yeah.
I just doesn't matter what else I play. I always go back to the source. I get fed up with everyone else. What are you playing?
Well, I grinded out my Assassin's Creed Valhalla Platinum. Hated every fucking second of it.
That good a game?
Just dire. Almost made me want to not play video games anymore. I just hated every second of it. If anybody wants it, if anybody has a PS5 and you want Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I've got a copy sat here that even I can't sell on Facebook Marketplace at £20. So if you want it, let me know. I know, just desperation. I wouldn't recommend it. I managed to grind out the Platinum Trophy in Overcooked 2 with Melissa, which has been great fun. I've just done all the DLC for that. That is one of the best party games of all time. But I am...
Overcooked, did you say?
Overcooked 2, yeah.
Right.
Just one of the best party games that exists. Just fantastic. And in my own time, I am playing Neo 2, which is fucking immaculate. Absolutely fucking immaculate. And I'm playing the remastered version on PS5, so it's high frame rate and high resolution, and it's just unbelievably immaculate. I thought no game would ever be as good as Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, but Neo is unbelievably immaculately good. It's it's just because it's got all of the RPG elements that I want. I can craft my character in the way I want my play style to be. You can't do that in Sekiro. So, I'm watching videos of people that are just building these just totally different characters for totally different play styles, and I'm like, this is cool. Nobody's going to play this game the same way. Yeah, exactly. Immaculate. Cannot wait to play more of that. I'm going to get off this podcast and do that. So, but I made mention of that. I mentioned the video game thing because it leads really well into our final story, which is just a short thing on the ethics in responsible journalism.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple of weeks ago, there was a news story that I didn't really want to run with.
You said it was an unbelievably clickbaity title.
Yeah. This is, and you can.
No, sorry, you said it was gloriously clickbaity.
Yeah,
that was a good pun.
Yeah,
sorry, continue.
I'll be honest, that wasn't an intended pun. That was. I've only just noticed that when you pointed it out. So
Kudos
a couple of weeks ago,
that was good.
Yeah, Loudwire ran with a story on Steve Klein, the former guitarist for Newfound Glory, and it was that he was a convicted in child porn case or words
That's
to
right.
that effect.
Sex crimes. The final plea stemmed from 7 charges of sex crimes against minors, which Klein found himself embroiled with in 2014.
What was the original title though? For the title for the article, I'm just trying to.
Probably.
Is it
it's
not
probably the same update?
Yeah, no.
It's
So the
name.
original title for it was ex Newfound Glory guitarist convicted in child porn case. That was the title that they went with for this story, and obviously I was like, okay, this is interesting. Let's check this out. I mean, when it says ex Newfound Glory, my initial thought was, how long has it been since he's not been in the band?
Mm-hmm.
And
is this music irrelevant?
Yeah, is this really fair on the current Newfound Glory because your ex members have done something shitty? But I wanted to check it out, and as I read through this story, I was like, hang on a minute, he was convicted in the case, but all charges of child pornography and all of that was dropped. In fact, he was convicted for a misdemeanor. So in the grand scheme of things, to put someone's face in an article, and it says convicted in child porn case, that feels very defamation-y. That really does feel very defamation-y. I know it's such a touchy subject because when you look into the details of the story, there's definitely a lot more going on here, and certainly I think you and I would look at this and go, how was this downgraded from a felony to a misdemeanor, and how were these aspects dropped? You know what I mean?
But see, it's not been misdemeanor though. It has been changed from child porn to indecent exposure.
Sorry,
but it's a felony.
You're totally
exposure.
right.
But I get what you're saying.
No,
the point is,
I need to clarify why I said that. Because
sorry.
I read the article, but I read it days and days ago. I'm remembering the details now. So the details are that it was a felony, but if he completes his probation for a year, it will be downgraded to a misdemeanor. That was the details.
But he also has to register as a sex offender for up to 10 years.
Yeah.
But no, you see, here's encapsulates the point we're going to make perfectly. You and I have had to have a conversation about an article that we've both read twice to get to the actual truth of where it's at and what happened.
Yeah.
Like, and the ethics and the responsibility of journalism.
Yeah, because they have issued an update on this.
Yes.
And it just seems that
and
the
that's the
update
reason why
is
I
that
reposted it.
Yeah, and it seems that the update is they are trying to be a little bit more responsible in terms of their journalism. They have now changed the title of the article to "Former Newfound Glory Guitarist Convicted of Indecent Exposure," because that's what he was convicted of. He was convicted of indecent exposure. He wasn't convicted of child porn, and to write the story the way that you've put it absolutely paints that to be the case. And honestly, here's the skeptical side of me. I just have to wonder whether they changed it because it was the right thing to do or because it was such a fucking legal nightmare for them to have posted what they posted. That's just plain fucking defamation. So I'm using this to segue into something that's slightly video gamey, but I want people's thoughts on this. So this week, over the last month, I guess, Troy Levitt, he was a lead producer, an executive producer on the upcoming Warner Brothers Harry Potter video game, and he was outed over the last few weeks for having a YouTube channel that had wrongthink on it, had opinions that people didn't like. So he had some videos where he was critical of like Anita Sarkeesian. He had videos that could be, by reading the titles, deemed quite controversial in terms of the opinions that he holds.
Just before you go any further,
Sure.
Is there a single person in the music in the computer games industry that says anything positive about Anita Sarkeesian? Because I've never ever heard anybody say that she makes valid points and let's stand them up. I'm not being an asshole, I'm being sincere.
Well, there are lots, and this is really like, I don't want to come out as a Gamergater because I'm not a Gamergater, but if you like, Gamergate is a term that people don't really have a full understanding of what Gamergate was and what people were going for, because it mutated and it meant different things to different people. And now we just look back on that whole situation that happened, and we have this idea of it being about anti-harassment and things like that. But at its core, a lot of people's issues surrounding Gamergate came from unethical journalism and the unethical ways that games were being covered. People exchanging sexual favors in exchange for positive reviews of their games that they were releasing, things like that. That's how the movement really started to kick off. Unethical journalism. Sure, it became a lot about harassment and shit like that. There was a lot of harassment, and it was turned into like, well, we need to address the idea of harassment in video games. But that felt like it was a misdirection from the actual issue, which is the unethical journalism. And I take huge issue with unethical journalism because I've just seen it happen to so many people, whereby you only need to. Retractions don't matter to me, because retractions get printed on the 6th page of a newspaper in tiny print at the bottom. And what happened to Troy Levitt?
Because they get away with it?
Yeah. After his video was every single news outlet was posting stories about him being alt-right and a racist and a bigot and all of these things. And they said he has a YouTube channel with videos titled such as, right? None of them, you could tell none of them watched any of the videos because they didn't quote anything that was said in the videos. It was just enough to present that these videos had these titles. None of them even did the research to see what his actual job was, because they all described him as a lead designer on this game, and he wasn't a lead designer on the game. He was hired by Warner Brothers years and years ago to be a lead designer, but he wasn't. He was promoted like 5 or 6 years ago. He's not been a lead designer for a very long time. He's very, very high up over there. Let's not pretend that the reason they went after him in this scenario is because it was about the Harry Potter game, and we know how much the industry, all industry in general, likes to jump on anything slightly J.K. Rowling related. So, like, is it Reset Era? There's a game forum. They've banned discussion of the Harry Potter game on there. They won't allow people to talk about it on there because of transphobia. Like, and J.K. Rowling has nothing to do with the game. She owns the intellectual property, etc. But that aside, I took issue with this because ultimately, despite desperately trying to get this man fired from his job, which is the scummiest thing you can possibly do, it didn't work. He did retire. he has, because he's an old guy, and he has released a video, and I found it really interesting to watch because people didn't win. He raises a really interesting point though, and this is comes onto the newfound glory thing. So I'm just going to read out these points to you, right? So under his slide for Journalism 101 responsibility, he talks about the idea of responsible journalism, and when he was in school doing journalism, learning about the responsibility of journalists to do ethical journalism was important, you know. And back in the day, to be hired at any sort of news outlet, you would have a journalism degree. You would be a journalist, not a glorified blogger who likes to write opinion pieces, who then gets hired by somebody that likes your opinions, right? You were a journalist. You were supposed to present stories. So the responsible press, the 4 points that Troy lists, the responsible press are fact-checked. The responsible press makes specific accusations. The responsible press provides supporting evidence. And the responsible press provide counterpoints. Whereas, and it was, when you think of responsible press and the counter to what responsible press is, what's the opposite of responsible press?
A responsible press.
That's the word I'd go for, but the word he's gone with is much more hard-hitting, and it really hits a nerve with me, and I think he's right. Propaganda press. Propaganda press. So propaganda press, narrative overrides facts, vague labels and smearing tactics are used, no supporting evidence is provided, and the journalism is extremely one-sided. And when I look at this story here, this Steve Klein story, it feels very much that we're looking at propaganda here more so than actual responsible press.
It started as that. I totally agree. I think the fact they've went in and edited it, and they've also put in Steve Klein's statement regarding the case and his clarification. That's a bit of a change. But you're right, I totally agree. And I think something that a lot of these journalistic outlets forget is that people should have the right to reply to whatever you're accusing them of. They should have the right to a rebuttal, to an explanation, to context.
Without that, it's a hit piece.
Aye, pretty much. And it's funny you're talking about responsible journalism. Like, I don't know a lot about journalism, but Nancy does, and Nancy corrects me on stuff all the time and keeps me right. She's studying in one of the very few accredited courses, highly accredited courses in the UK, and is an active journalist. So it's great when I talk to her about things, because she's always very quick to, annoyingly and always right, be like, what about that source? Did you check it? Like, have you looked into this? Like, where did you read that? Did you do anything? And like, did they have any right to apply whatever? Like the questions that make it fair, clear, unbiased, ethical, and relevant, essentially.
Yeah. And it matters. Stuff like that just,
of course it does.
Really matters. And
of course it does.
I think that in this particular example with both Steve Klein and also Troy, the Troy one is really fucking interesting, because again, they didn't quote any of these videos because there was nothing that they could quote. None of this was milquetoast stuff at fucking best. Especially, trying to label someone's anti-feminism when he's got videos on his channel being pro-feminism and linking you to feminist resources that you should be reading, when he's got pro-LGBT and trans rights stuff on his channel, when he's got, like, he was described as a Ben Shapiro supporter. The best evidence that you could provide of him being a Ben Shapiro supporter was the fact that he had a video talking about Ben Shapiro, and the video was about how off-base Ben Shapiro's opinions and views were. It was him criticizing Ben Shapiro's ideas, but because he had a video of Ben Shapiro's face, he was pinned as a Ben Shapiro supporter. And I think that's just so unbelievably unethical. And I don't want to be the one that like attributes myself to Gamergate again, but like I can totally fucking see why what happened, and it totally should happen again. Not from a harassment standpoint, but because these fucking journalists need to be held accountable for what they do. They try and ruin people's lives for fucking clicks. They just do it relentlessly because that's their job, to just get clicks. And it doesn't matter if they're right or if they're wrong. They just want to get their clicks, ruin whoever they need to ruin, and then just move on with their fucking days.
It depends entirely on the journalistic channel who's putting that out there.
Yes.
But I agree with you, because we live in a time where the Scottish Sun and the Sun, as newspapers, put stuff out, and so there's the Daily Mail, and then you've got the Digger, which is like I think it's Scottish only, like small publication about this size and full colour, and essentially it's all gossip about supposed underworld stuff, people that are involved in like gangland stuff. I'm not genuinely like that, but it may as well be a soap opera. How much it is true and how much it's not, and what it's actually telling you is probably nonsense.
Sure.
And I think it's a really dangerous precedent to set for that to be out and these people not to be held to account. I think it's mental. And it's just when you were bringing up the people being held to account for bad journalism, it's not as if you and I haven't had personal experience with a friend of ours who went through the ringer because the courts decided that context and intent don't matter.
Yeah.
But won't hold newspapers and journalists to the same scrutiny or level of moral and legal responsibility.
Yeah.
It's staggering beyond belief. A guy makes a silly video, nearly gets to jail. They're pushing for a year, claiming that he was trying to round up people into areas to kill them all. Like, so far removed from reality.
Yeah.
And then people like Piers Morgan are allowed on TV multiple times despite being responsible for and or at very least involved in hacking a dead child's phone during a police investigation so they could get information. So MD, it's, I don't care how many people, again, I'm going political here, anybody that I see on Facebook that talks about Piers Morgan, he just says how it is, that's because he's an entitled wank that thinks he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
He had literally just spoke about on TV, for him that doesn't know, how someone wasn't mentally strong enough to take criticism, and then somebody criticised him literally straight after, and he walked off set. He stormed off and quit his job.
Yeah.
You can't possibly think that you have any moral right to talk about somebody else's mental fortitude when you can't take one single bit of criticism, valid criticism, very valid criticism, and decide, well, it's my memory card and I'm going home, you're not playing on my saving jersey devil for the PlayStation 1. You know what I mean? Like, just so fucking childish.
Yeah.
And then, why has it been given a platform to start with? Why are we allowing people like fucking Katie Hopkins to write about how humans are cockroaches and how they're vermin and they deserve to die? Like, why are these people not being held to account?
I have to jump to I don't like doing this, but I have to jump to the defense of Katie Hopkins, which isn't a position I ever want to have to take. But because the inevitable result, I think, of you saying, why are we allowing these people to do these things? The mindset that follows with that is we need to stop these people from doing these things.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I'm not going to cancel culture.
No, I know, but like that's where people go to from that. We shouldn't allow people to do these things. Therefore, we should stop them from being able to do these things. And actually, the way to actually do these things is allow these people to do these things. But we as a society should be above it. We shouldn't be supporting it. We shouldn't be drawing fucking attention to it. Because going after Katie Hopkins and victimizing her in the way that she, like, obviously she's been victimized, and gloriously so, in the way that she's victimized people, but victimize her in the way you have has not changed her mind. If anything, it's made her dig her fucking heels in even more to her position, you know? And it'll be the same with guys like Piers Morgan. Like, the way to deal with stuff like this is to be better as a society, not lower ourselves to their level. And because what happens is the Troy Leavitt situation, whereby you go after someone who absolutely had no reason to go after this man. No reason to go after this man whatsoever. You tried to ruin his fucking life and his career and everything, because it suited your political agenda. And I think that's the fucking scummiest and most pathetic thing that anybody can do. None of it was fact-checked. Every single news outlet was just running with the exact same fucking story, and like, almost to the point they were plagiarized. Like, they were just rewriting each other's stories. You could tell they were citing each other as sources rather than actually checking any of the fucking information. It's absolutely disgusting. I'm glad that Loudwire made a correction to this story, because ultimately, you know, you can talk about the right and the wrong of it. Do you think he should have got what he got in this case, this Steve Klein gentleman? I also think that maybe the case didn't go the way it should, but that's not my place to go, you know? I can't just look at it and go, I think it should have gone another way, therefore I'm going to write stories calling him a paedophile. He wasn't convicted of being a paedophile. Facts. That doesn't mean that he isn't, right? But factually speaking, in a court of law, he was not convicted of those things, so you cannot describe him as those things.
even the second paragraph in his statement, Steve Klein is, I am not a paedophile. Just that in itself, all original felony charges were dropped.
Yeah.
Does not mean I pleaded to any crime involving child pornography. Like,
Yeah.
what a poor guy having to... And there's no clearing your name after that.
Absolutely.
There's none.
Yeah.
Like, I've had this conversation a couple of times. I'm not painting men as victims in any way, but there are two things you can call a man that will never, ever, ever be redacted, and that's a rapist or a paedophile. But when those accusations are out the box, they don't go back in. And that's not me saying that people shouldn't be accused of it. Like, there are people who deserve to be held accountable for terrible actions and shitty behaviours and horrible outlooks and attitudes towards certain people.
Yep.
But I think there needs to be, like you're talking about journalistic integrity, like there needs to be
Human
evidence.
integrity.
There needs to be something. Human integrity. There needs to be something that is quantifiable to
Or you
hold
just
these
have a
people to
witch hunt.
account. And I don't even mean past that, because I'm sure there's plenty of people who are guilty that get away with it. Brock Turner is a perfect example. He got away with it because his family had money and because he's from the middle class, if you remember that case.
Yeah, I do.
And fucking horrendous situation. You know what I mean? Like, so backwards. But I think before I start going away in tangents again,
Holding people accountable. Bad
Yes,
people do
and-
bad things, and we should prosecute them, hold them accountable when they do those things. But the hunt for people that do bad things is, while that is absolutely important, it needs to be something that's done very carefully. It needs to be something that's done very respectfully. And more importantly, when we look at the situation like the Salem witch trials, we need to look at what happened there and say that the people that thought they were doing good, the people that thought they were ridding their town of witches, became criminal in the way they went about doing what they were doing. And we, as a society, should be fucking better than that.
Followers of the Nazi Party, quite a lot of them didn't think they were doing anything wrong. They thought they were just sustaining their own life and doing better and thriving and building a better community and looking after the people that deserve to be looked after. Like, it happens.
You're
It does
going to
happen.
hate this and love this at the same time, because cutting a conversation short like this, when you know we could just keep talking, feels awful, but it's too perfect to not do. I'm going to end this conversation because I'm invoking Godwin's law. So, did you know? This show has been brought to you by our friends over at Ormsby Guitars. If you have the time, please do head on over and follow them on Instagram to see more of their incredible work. I'm actually spending more and more of my time each day scrolling through Instagram and really getting the appeal of looking at incredible instruments like this. It just makes you want to order something really, really special. Of course, you can always contact them if you want to order a custom shop guitar, or head on over to their website, check out the pre-order section, and get involved on the upcoming Goliath Run 14. Again, one of these guitars can be pre-ordered for as little as $1,200 US. That's an incredible price. That's a lot of guitar for very little money. So if you want something like this in your life, head on over to ormsbyguitars.com and get involved. Thanks so much to Ormsby, and we'll see you for another show soon. Laters. So, as always, a huge thank you to our friends and family over at Ormsby Guitars. We do apologise to those guys for invoking them right after talking about Nazis. They are not related in any way, shape or form. They are considerably better than the Nazis. But Ormsby, fantastic guitars, and they're well worth. Shall I invoke Godwin's law again and just go to another ad?
I was going to say, how to lose your endorsements 101. We're not comparing you to Nazis. We're just saying that you're a perfect follow-up from the conversation about Nazis.
We're
No.
not comparing the brand to Nazis. We're just saying that you're better than Nazis, which should be basic branding 101, shouldn't it? That I would love to start a company that just said whatever. That's it. Levi Clay Transcriptions, better than Nazis. Can't argue with that. It's like when people
really setting the bar high for yourself, though.
When people describe themselves as Antifa, and then they say, "Well, you're also Antifa because if you're not, then you're pro-fascist." And it's like, well, I can see where you're going with that. I guess I can't really argue with that as a logic. So generally speaking, Levi Clay Transcriptions, better than Nazis. Can't argue with that. Can't argue with that. That's solid. So yeah. Godwin's law to click again. No, I didn't actually want to end that conversation. That was fun, and I think that we could have just talked through that. But it just felt so fun to just be like, no, Godwin's law. I'm going. It was a heavy political chat, but obviously, ethics in journalism is something that feels quite important to me. And Melissa says my
think-
best quality as a person is that I have so much misplaced hope in humankind. I have so
Yep.
much belief that we have the potential to be better. Even when I'm so cynical that deep down I probably don't think we can be, but I feel that we all should be better. I feel the world could be a much less divisive place, and I feel that we could all live in a much better sense of harmony if we weren't falling into the stupid traps like this, where we're like 2020, or it's been the past few years, but it's been the year of the public witch trials, and I just see it getting worse and worse and worse, and I just want to plead to my fellow man. It's why, like, oh, all right, we do the fuck the Tories chat on here, but then I'm always trying to make that point of like, but everybody's welcome. You're all welcome here, and we love you all.
100%.
Because we should be coming together as one society rather than fucking separating and forming. We don't want to be America. I almost ran with a John Schaefer story today, because his legal team are now arguing that because the case hasn't been brought within 30 days that it's null and void. And like, that's the worst possible thing that because you're essentially saying, well, we've got no good legal arguments, but we're going to get off on a technicality on this one. And
if you're going to send me to jail right now, you can't do it.
Yeah. And I was going to bring it up, but mainly because I was reading the comments in the article, because it's funny, because in the circles that we roll in, I just don't think we're ever going to run into anybody that would be a staunch supporter of what he did. But of course, people like that out there do exist. And reading the comments from these people talking about, the what's the name? Capitol building? The Capitol building? Yeah,
it's storming the Capitol. Capitol Hill.
Sure. Yeah. So, and that it's a public building, and it's their people that are working there represent us, the people, and they should be held accountable to us, the people. And like, sure, I get your argument, and you very firmly believe all of these things, but you just lost an election, and you were the minority in that. So, technically speaking, as democracy goes, they are representing the people. They just, annoyingly, you lost this one type thing. And it just sows this separation between people, and I hate it. I hate where the world is going. It makes me truly sad to my core, because at my core, I like to think that I'm a reasonably good person as well, and I have faith in in men and women.
Yes,
in mankind. I don't want to say men. I have faith in mankind.
Humankind.
Careful, mate. It's got the word man in there still. People kind. I'm quoting a Justin Trudeau there. People kind. We don't say mankind here. We say people kind.
Right, fair enough. Right, that's us getting into the thought crime.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say to summarise that full conversation and kind of wraps it up nicely is how much of those opinions of yours, mine's, and the ones you were reading are formed by certain media outlets, and who is holding them accountable to what they're putting out there. And I think we just leave it at that. We're not getting into conspiracy theories or yet more political patter, but the content and where you get that content from matters.
Yeah, and even I'm not going down it. I'm not going to make accusations, but even if you don't buy into those types of conspiracy theories, you still should, as a free-thinking member of society, you still should be able to tell the difference between responsible journalism and propaganda. When the person writing the article clearly has an axe to grind, when the person writing an article clearly has a political view that they are trying to push onto you, and when you can see that thing is working, you should really be looking at what's going on here and asking yourself, like, is this a news source that I should be consuming? Because it's very easy to become politically radicalized. Very easy to become politically radicalized. I've seen it happen to friends in both directions, and I'm not a fan of seeing it happen, including the people that are writing the articles, that they don't realize that it's happened. It's a snowball effect, and
easily,
less division. The Guitar Souls brings people together.
That's what we're trying. I mean, it could be very easily painted that I'm falling into extreme left, if not far left or whatever. Like, I don't think so. I'd like to think that I'm trying to do good. I care about people.
You're a long way from donning a mask and taking a bat out, mate.
Well, it depends. Is it through road rage, or is it because I want to be a political activist? Because they're two different scenarios, and I think you know fine well that it's not happened, but it's certainly not impossible.
I had someone nearly ram me off the road the other day when I was driving on it sounds really dramatic, right? Driving on the motorway, I was in the fast lane, pulling into the middle lane, And as I was pulling into the middle line, someone that was in the slow lane started to just pull into the middle lane as well.
The indicator or nothing?
No indicator. Didn't see me pulling out of the fast lane, etc. And I know if that was you would have chased him for 50 miles until he ran out of petrol and then beaten him to a pulp. Or you certainly would have screamed at him a lot, right?
Did I get the finger, maybe?
Yeah, I didn't even stop singing Pride and Glory. I just handled it.
Too busy Zach welded up in your mind. I didn't want to talk about road rage. Nancy had a bad incident with some absolute wanker, and it put me on the mindset that I would definitely smash somebody if I saw what happened. Anyway, all I was going to say, just to go back to that very last point you're talking about, being considerate to where you're getting your media, and even the people writing that media might not realise they fall into certain biases. For anybody that's ever reading anything and wonders where on a political spectrum and a actual factual spectrum it lies, mediabiasfactcheck.com is a tremendous website for literally just telling you whether something falls left or right or centre, and how rigorous the reporting is. So
I have to wonder if Loudwire would appear on there.
Let's check it. I'm going to Google it right now.
And while you're looking for that, I'm just going to give an official announcement. This is episode number 99, so episode 100 will be next week. We will be live on the channel, taking your questions. We'll have some things to talk about. We will be drinking. We'll be having a good time. And we might even be giving some stuff away, which would be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
Nice.
And it'll be given away live on the show if we give stuff away. So you'll need to be there live if you want to be in with a chance of winning it. So, please do check it out. Have you found info? Is Loudwire on there?
It's not.
No, I didn't think so.
It's not. Because it's not really a media outlet. It's more an opinion, music, journalism place. But it's a really good thing to use, genuinely.
But I think that kind of highlights the problem, doesn't it? Because when it comes to music news, we do get all of our music news from the same 5, 6, 7 or 8 sources. And all right, it feels like a lot of sources. But still, we go to these sites for news of things that's happening on the guitar scene, but the people that write for them write a lot of opinion pieces as well. So you go there for your news and you end up getting a lot of opinions, and before you know it, you're being preached to. And
you could fall down that rabbit hole very easy.
I
think you and I are pretty good at recognising that, though. Certainly I would hope that we continue to be, and it doesn't become a blind side for us.
Yeah, I'm going to be a cynical motherfucker until the day I drop dead, which will be 5 years from now.
With the amount of stress I'm going through, it could be next week. I feel you.
Any closing messages for our fans, Mike?
Just the usual. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks for the fan mail or the interactions. Episode 100, I think, is going to be a complete doozy. You're going to have Levi and I getting drunk and probably making a racket while we're on streaming stuff as well.
Yeah.
Couldn't think of the word there for some reason. Big thanks to all the supporters who've tuned in, whether you're watching on YouTube and left a comment. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And hopefully you'll be here on the Monday Night Guitar Geek Club, this is the 15th, so it will be the 22nd, so next Monday, 9 PM onwards, and Levi and I will be having a wee drink, a wee libation.
9 PM until we can no longer stand, so 9 PM until 10 PM.
Aye, probably. 9 till 9:30, and then half an hour to hobble out the garage, or out the studio even.
Yeah.
That kind of presents the question, how are we going to do this if we're supposed to be socially distanced? Just going to sit apart?
We'll sit a little distance from each other.
Cool. Can't wear a mask while I'm drinking, though, unless we cut a straw hole.
I mean,
I'm sure we'll be alright. We're both inoculated.
Yeah.
We're both not inoculated, but both safe.
Yeah.
Certainly been taking precautions. You don't leave the house anyway.
I'm in a fucking bubble. I'm in the tiniest little bubble. My bubble is so small that the one person I'm living with is currently leaving. My bubble will just be me soon. So anyway, Mike, until next time.
Like and subscribe.
Good advice. Follow it.